Grab your popcorn, find your seats, and get ready, because this episode of the Cinema Spotlight is about to begin. Subscribe if you're new, and please, enjoy the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Spotlight. This is the show where we dissect all things movies, TV, and everything in between. I am your host and self-proclaimed media expert, James Sena. Apologies for the delay for this episode. I'm doing what I can to get these episodes out on time, but I've decided that I want to prioritize quality over quantity, I guess. Quality over quantity, I guess. I want to be proud of every single thing that I put out, as I always have been. So at least for a little bit, these episodes might have a bit of a looser release schedule as I'm trying to reacclimate and adjust and figure out what works best for me and what hopefully will be best for your ears. But in today's episode, we're starting off with another Oscar watch, followed by an update on the ongoing strikes. And for the last segment, I'll be joined by a very special guest in a new segment called The Great Debate. Here's an official spoiler warning for all content discussed here today, and if you wish to skip around to avoid spoilers, you can find timestamps in the description both on YouTube and Spotify for your convenience. That said, let's shine a spotlight on Talk to Me.
Oscar Watch. Oscar Watch.
The next movie to cross off our Oscar Watch list of movies that we need to watch before the next Oscar ceremony, I've decided to be the movie Talk to Me, which is a horror film. It's an A24 horror film. I'll tell you more of the... Actually, let's just do that now. Normally I like to do my little pre-movie spiel, but let's go. It's directed by Danny and Michael Filippo, I think. That's how you pronounce it. I think they're Australian, I believe. And they're on YouTube as Raka Raka. So they're YouTube directors, but they're no strangers to production and special effects and stuff like that. Stunt work. They're no strangers to that. I want to give credit to the main cast: Sophie Wilde as Mia, Alexandra Jensen as Jade, Joe Bird as Riley, and Otis Danji as Daniel. Now, for this, and trying to come up with, why is this the movie that I want to pick? And why not some other movies? Well, this movie had gotten a lot of hype around it. It actually was given a pretty solid rating, so I was very curious. And I've always been interested in the horror genre, but usually the horror films that deal with the paranormal are not something I normally gravitate towards. I normally don't like the paranormal stuff. For me, it's a little too much. You could make the case James is a little scaredy cat. He doesn't like the spooky ghosts. True. That is true. I put my hands up. You can't see me, but I'm putting my hands up. That is partially true. I'm a little bit of a skeptic myself, but the thing about these movies that I always find a little bit tricky is that when you're introducing the element of paranormal activities, you have to kind of define what that is in that movie. And every single time I feel like it takes so much away from the movie to have to explain it. But the thing is, you do kind of have to explain it for it to make sense and for it to have its rule set. If you've been following the show, I feel this way about a lot of science fiction and specifically actually time travel and multiversal type phenomenon in movies and in these science fiction movies. And the reason why I'm super such a stickler for there need to be rules that you follow or that you create for yourself is because it needs the movie to make sense. You need to have some sort of guidelines, because that way you can't just have any single random thing happen. Now, some people might make the case, well, James, if you have an open-ended sort of understanding, then anything can happen. Doesn't it sort of make the rest of the plot more unpredictable in a fun way? No, because it just ends up making things confusing. You want things to be chaotic, but make sense, right? So I think a perfect example of this is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Was very chaotic with how it did things, but it did so in a way where it all made sense. So I think that's definitely something that I look for. Now with these movies, they become harder to critique because each film that delves into this type of ghostly world, it has to recreate these rules. So I find myself trying to understand the rules, seeing if they make sense or remain consistent. Then I have to decide whether or not the rest of the film actually works around it. So then it's like a regular review after I've decided, okay, these rules, they make sense, I'm good with them. Now, does the rest of the film work? And if the answer is no, then that's just a whole nother level of like, wait, what? But I digress. I've actually learned after doing some digging that this film is not the last that we're going to see of this world. Allegedly, there's a short prequel film that they filmed at the same time as Talk to Me that is going to be, it's actually scheduled for release. I don't know exactly the day. I don't know if they've announced that yet, but then there's also going to be just a straight up sequel film in the works as well, which I think is really cool because it really shows that the creators of this story, of this world, have a passion for what they've created, reminiscent to me of A Quiet Place, actually, because A Quiet Place, there's A Quiet Place, A Quiet Place Part 2, and then I don't remember what the name of it is, but there's like a prequel something for it too, showing like the first days of that apocalypse. So I love when the creators have a passion for what they're working on rather than it just being a cash grab. Those movies tend to always have much bigger cult followings, so I think that that's really awesome. Now, I want to also note that the movie budget for this movie is $4.5 million. Because, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, lower budget movies, especially in horror I might add, have every right to be as good, if not better than any other film made with a higher budget, as long as the writing is successful. Before we jump in, I want to provide a warning that this movie deals with some potentially sensitive topics, so do whatever you feel necessary as we have this discussion and conversation. Okay, whew. Now that I can take a breath, it's synopsis time. We're gonna do a quick little breakdown. This is how I like to do my Oscar watches, and this is how I'm gonna probably be structuring them. I want to give a little foresight, just a quick breakdown, the goods and the bads, and then we'll get into some Oscar stuff. So, what is this movie about? If you've never heard of Talk to Me, you've been warned, there are spoilers. This movie follows teenagers as they mess around with a hand that allows them to momentarily give spirits access to take control of their bodies. And we actually don't learn too much about the hand or its origin, but I actually assume that this will be explored in future related projects, so I'm okay with it for now. As long as we get that explanation, it doesn't bother me when we get it. The character Mia has just suffered the loss of her mother via overdose, and a big piece of the story revolves around whether or not this might have been intentional. Mia is clearly in anguish, and this is furthered when she, along with Jade, Jade's little brother Riley, and Daniel, Jade's boyfriend, who I guess has some sort of history with Mia, go to a party where the hand is being used. We see what the hand could lead to in the opening scene, so the movie feels like a ticking time bomb waiting for something similar to occur. And, you know, that's not giving away too much, so definitely go watch the movie so we can fill in the blanks together, but that's generally it. This story is pretty self-contained, so let's talk about the good and the bad. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention, it started as a con, and then I kept kind of thinking about it, but the goals of the main character are incredibly confusing to me at times, and many of Mia's actions were very contradictory to me also, which is, I hate when characters do that, until, there's an asterisk, I realized that this was fully intentional. Because Mia, in my eyes, actually, halfway through the story, or you could even make the case from the get-go, but I don't feel like that's a fair take on it, she's an unreliable narrator. And again, feel free to disagree, but this is my understanding. But especially the scene where she accidentally stabs, again, spoilers, her dad. Unclear to me if he was actually dead if Jade discovered him. I wasn't sure if he was like dying, if he lived. We don't really know what happened to him. But she was battling the darkness that was consuming her, basically, throughout a lot of the decision-making parts of the movie where she has to actively be in the driver's seat for what happens in the plot. Her judgment is clouded. So a lot of what she's seeing and what happens, we're not sure what is real and what's not because of the state of mind that she is in. So, because you can take the anguish or whatever, I don't want to also encourage this idea of thinking that, oh, anyone who's in anguish is an unreliable source of that's not what I'm saying. I want to make that very clear. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the darkness, like again, we don't know enough about the hand and how it works, but the demon, I'm assuming, going through the hand and kind of is residing in her and is poisoning her thought process. That mixed with her anguish, they're able to kind of leech off of that sadness, that depression, and kind of make her do, see, and say things that isn't really Mia. And this makes me want to revisit the film, because I actually noticed how characters were treating her differently at a certain point, and I believe that this is beautifully contributing to the main themes of the film. And so there are two main themes, and in my opinion, they were depression and drug addiction. Pretty, like, if you can see those scenes where at the party where they're dealing with the hand, they're very allegorical. Those party scenes, even like the title of the movie, right? The title is Talk to Me. It has the connotation of something you would say to someone who's struggling with depression and is maybe actually contemplating suicide. I think that that's something that you would say to that. So I think that this movie is just one big allegory for depression and in a lot of ways drug addiction. If you see the party scene again, how they're interacting with the hand, how it almost feels like they get a high off of it. That's very reminiscent of like someone doing drugs or something at a party. And I think we can stretch this parallel further by saying that the hand is a metaphor for what it means to reach out for help, right? So the hand's there, you're saying, talk to me, you're grabbing the hand. I just think that there's a lot of imagery there that has to do with helping someone who is sort of on the brink, on the edge. And I like that. And I think that's, granted, the movie as a whole ends up being very dark and very sad as a result, but I think that the writing of it is actually very beautiful. And again, I have this in my notes too, I just sort of said this candidly, but this movie is very beautifully sad. Like, it is very sad, but there's some sort of beauty to it, and I can't quite put my finger on how else to describe it. But even coming out with the script for this movie, I'm gonna be honest, even kind of talking about it is making me a little sad, because the end of the movie essentially is Mia being consumed by her depression. And, well, I think you kind of see where I'm going with that. So I'm not going to go into it too much further, but I think that there's like that symbolism, it really does work. And I think as an artistic piece, I think it's very effective at getting that idea across. Like, you really see all the intention of the directors and what they're trying to accomplish. Now, let me talk about the issues with the movie. Talked about some things that I really liked. The only real issue with the movie, in my opinion, is that the movie is so committed to its themes that the final act was a tad misplaced, in my opinion. Granted, I love Mia's story, as tragic as it is, but every other character kind of falls off a bit as the film kind of centers on Mia. I think we're so wrapped in with what's happening with Mia, and like I said, it feels like, like all these actions are contradictory, which is fine, because if we're getting this idea where everything that we're seeing we can't really trust because she's being influenced by the spirits or whatever, I think that all the other characters kind of fell off. And I think Jade's character is a really big example of this, because they tried to like do some things with her, but she feels particularly confusing to me. And Riley's character also had a very dissatisfying conclusion. You don't really know what's going on with them, or you don't know if Riley's ever going to be okay. Like, you don't know. And I think that there was a missed opportunity. I mentioned him earlier with Marcus, Mia's dad. I think that a lot of these side characters, I felt like the story, like they were kind of like dancing around what was actually happening in the story, because everything we're seeing through Mia's eyes, and Mia's eyes, I think we come to find out, aren't super trustworthy because it's being influenced by an outside source, as I've said multiple times at this point. My point is, I think that towards the end of the movie, I think that the movie sort of loses the plot a little bit. I think we're just kind of going around and doing this song and dance of this bad thing is gonna happen, and then it just kind of does, and I'm just kind of, it's not nearly as bad of a drop off as Knock at the Cabin, but this movie has this issue where like you kind of see where it's going, And then rather than subvert that, it just kind of like does it. And you're like, oh, okay. And I think there was a little bit more room there to do some other fun stuff. I think that like the overall length of the movie, does it contribute to that? No, I don't. Maybe not. I think that the movie was fine being the length that it was. I think again, some of the parts were a bit, had they been a bit shifted around, maybe more time to focus on like what's actually happening with Riley. Again, it's hard for me to like really pinpoint it because at this point we don't know the full truth of the story, and maybe a sequel will fill in those gaps. I'm hoping. I can talk about at a later point because I just want to focus on this movie for right now. But if people have questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or whatever on what I think a sequel should look like and should include and what it should map out. Because I think that I have some thoughts on there. The first thing definitely is what the heck is actually happening with Riley? Because if Mia's dead, again, spoilers I guess, but you knew that. If Mia is actually dead and we don't, like, her story is more or less concluded, I want to know, is Riley okay? Did Riley make it out of the film? I don't know. Is something going to happen with Jade? I mean, Daniel was maybe seeing some things, like Daniel used the hand. Could something happen with Daniel? Like, there's so much, and then all the other kids at the party, like, did something only happen to Mia because of the state that she was already sort of in when she did it? Or, like, is it a whole allegory to, like, like, drug use is okay unless you're on the edge, in which case you shouldn't? Like, I don't understand what the movie's trying to do with that. Also, I think here was another part, and I had a very, I can't believe I'm actually comparing these films, but I had a very similar critique with The Sound of Freedom, where it feels like there's a whole kind of tidbit in the movie that is unnecessary because it happens. They kind of talk about it, and then the real meat happens afterwards. So, like, there was a party scene where they showed the hand. Mia does the hand stuff. That sounds a little... Anyways. She does the hand stuff, and then they leave, and then they have another party, and then they do it all over again, and then this is the time where it goes bad. I think if you just build it up properly, you only need to do the party scene once. I don't know if there was, like, a real purpose for that, but I don't know. I think it was... I definitely think that there were more character elements that we saw more of. That's what I'll leave it there. I won't go too much more in. But as for a rating, I gave this movie a 7.7 out of 10. I don't know if that's low or high, because I think online people are talking about it much more highly. And I think while yes, the movie is very enjoyable, and I actually think it's a beautiful artistic piece, I think that, and let me just actually, I'll keep stacking on the positives. I think the self-contained nature of this movie was done incredibly well. And this is a weird case where I provided you with my floor rating, or almost like just a placement rating. It's a 7.7 right now, but this movie could easily go up depending on the info that we learn with the other installations, if with the sequel or the prequel. If we learn more information about the hand and how it operates, I think it could change how we view this movie. It's a very interesting situation that I haven't really come across on the show before, so I think that that's really exciting. For newer directors especially, I'm very impressed with just the way that they did this film. Artistically, it really, really works, and I think it's one of the better horror movies of the year. I think it's probably the best of the year so far. I haven't seen Beau is Afraid, don't know if that's even really horror, but maybe we'll get into that pretty soon. Foreshadowing. Will this film win an Oscar? I'm gonna be honest, for all the Talk To Me fans, I don't think it's gonna win anything. I think it's very unlikely that it'll get a nomination either. But I think, unlike Knock at the Cabin, I think that there is definitely potential for something, for it to get nominated for something, especially due to the strikes causing a somewhat limited selection of films to pull from. You know, I think that a lot of stuff got pushed from this year into next, and I think that that's going to cause it to have a little bit less competition than maybe it would have. A little bit more on that in the next segment, if you're interested. Please be interested. But yeah, I mean, if this movie gets a nomination in writing, or even a best original screenplay, I wouldn't be particularly shocked. I think that the writing is very good, and there's a lot of things early in this movie where until the final act, I was gripped. Everything made a lot of sense, and I think that just the fall off with other characters kind of made me a little bit But aside from that, I think that there was so much really, really good writing happening. So I think that there's something potential here. And best original screenplay, again, I don't know about that one, but it could happen. It could. It would be like a last slot filled in just to give it a nomination. But the thing is, like, it's a horror film, and if Hereditary, or actually don't know if Hereditary got nominated for it. I don't think it did, but if Hereditary didn't get nominated and Nope from last year didn't get a nomination, this one's probably not going to. But what do you think? Am I wrong? Will this movie break the curse and become the first horror movie to get some Oscar nominations? Okay, that's not entirely true. Get Out won some stuff, I think. So, but still, it's uncommon for horror movies. Let me know if you disagree, and let me know down in the comments. And when we come back, I'm going to be providing an update on the ongoing writer and actor strikes. So if you want to hear more, don't go away. Which movies do you want mentioned on the Oscar Watch? Let us know on Instagram at @the_cinema_spotlight, and drop a follow while you're there to get updates, behind the scenes details, and to participate in polls following each episode. Now, let's get back to the show. It's been a handful of episodes since I've done a deeper look at the ongoing strikes, and I come to you with a positive update. As of September 27th, the Writers Guild of America strikes have officially ended, and demands have been met. So let's break down what this means, as well as what was agreed upon. First and foremost, this needs to be said because I've heard some incorrect statements online, and just from circles that I've been around, just some misunderstandings of what actually went down. So let me just start by saying this. The strikes are not over. It is not done. Scabbing is still very much a thing. They're not over. I don't know. I think I understand why people might think that they're over, because there are some outlets saying that they're over. It's not accurate. It's only partially accurate. So let me try to fill you in on the truth here. Brought to you by quite literally like the main source. Like this is like from the horse's mouth, so to speak. SAG-AFTRA is still striking. The writers got their demands met, and the actors are still on strike. So half of the strikes from like on the writers' point of view, they're technically done because they got what they were after, but a lot of writers are still on strike because a lot of writers are also actors, and they want to also support the actors and stuff. So if you support the entire movement, you like, it's not done. Like the strikes are not done yet. So I want to make that very, very clear. This is, yes, that is the assessment. Now, again, scabbing is still a thing to be wary of, and people saying, oh, well, the strikes officially ended, so I can do whatever I want. They're not correct. Don't listen to those people. What this does mean, though, is that we are certainly nearing the end. This is why it's a positive thing. Yes, I think some people are going a bit too far, getting a bit hasty, saying some things like, oh, well, the strike's are over, so I don't, blah, 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 I can do whatever. No, that's not fully true, but you're right in maybe being excited for them to be over. If you're kind of like, I just want the strikes to end, I want everyone to get their just contracts and stuff like that. I understand that, and we're close. We are close. Closer than we thought we were weeks ago. Let's dissect the contract, the WGA contract. I'm going to review and react to it live with you right now, and I'm going to link what I'm reviewing so you can follow along if you like, but the page goes pretty in depth on what the writers received. So let's jump right in. I'm just going to be reading some headlines. I don't want to take too much up of your time. Let's begin. Okay, so the term of the agreement is September 25th, 2023 through until May 1st of 2026. Cool. Okay. What was agreed upon? Minimums increasing. So most MBA minimums, it will increase by 5% on ratification of the contract. Some minimums and rates increase less, most by 3% each year, while a few rates increase only once or do not increase over the contract. These exceptions are the result of patterns established in the industry. Okay, cool. Seems like minimums are increasing. Cool. I'm not a money guy, you know. They call me a lot of things, but I'm not the money guy. So I can't speak too much in depth on what that really means. But again, I'm just live reacting to this, not having fully understood everything. But increased health and pension contribution rate. That sounds like a good thing, potentially for, specifically for older actors as well. Or sorry, older writers. Maybe that's just what pension. Maybe I'm too much of like a Gen Z. Like, like if I hear the word pension, I think old. But you know, sorry. So maybe I'm really aging myself here. The health fund contribution on reportable earnings will increase by 0.5% in the second year of agreement, from 11.5 to 12%. The guild also has the right to divert an additional 0.5% in each of the second and third years of the contract. So it's just looking like more overall benefits for health and just for minimums and stuff like that. Increased health and pension contributions for writing teams. That sounds like a very good thing just off the bat. Each writer on a writing team employed for a script will receive pension and health contributions up to the relevant cap as though they were a single writer. That's actually really cool, because that way you could work in writing groups and not be penalized for that. If you're working in a group, I'm pretty sure it used to just be like, you used to get less because it was more people working on it, but now everyone's getting enough as though they were working by themselves, which I think is actually, that's a great thing. Artificial intelligence. Okay, this is a big one. We have established regulations for the use of AI on MBA covered projects in the following ways. The AI, this is the meat and potatoes, everybody. This is what we wanted to know, because this was like a big thing where the writers were getting upset that they would potentially have their jobs replaced by a computer. So AI cannot write or rewrite literary material, and AI-generated material will not be considered source material under the MBA, meaning that AI-generated material can't be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights. Love that. First reaction, love that. You're not allowing the AI to get any credit. Awesome. A writer can choose to use AI when performing writing services, which again, I actually think is a great thing. It's a tool that exists. I think if you use that tool to completely replace the jobs, I think that's the issue. But if the writer themselves want to use it as a tool, I think that should be okay. As long as, and this even makes it clear, if the company consents and provided that the writer follows applicable company policies, but the company cannot require the writer to use AI. Love that too. You cannot be required, and you can only use it under the consent of the company and stuff like that. I love that. The company must disclose to the writer if any materials given to the writer have been generated by AI or incorporate AI generated material. I love that too, because if someone gives you something that you have to use, it's good to know that if it wasn't coming from another person. It's just more information being provided, and I think they're like, a lot of it's sort of like unspoken, like, yeah, obviously, but at the same time, I think it's just creating a groundwork of open communication, which I like that too. The WGA reserves the right to assert that exploitation of writers' material to train AI is prohibited. That's another really, really big one. You can't use it to train AI. That's interesting too, because they could realistically train it to do the exact type of writing that you'd be trying to do. So I love that. That seemingly is like the biggest chunk of this, but I see some other stuff. So let's keep reading some headlines here. Improved terms for screenwriter employment. Guaranteed second step. A second step is required whenever a writer is hired for a first draft. A first draft screenplay for 200% of minimum or less, including original. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna be honest. A guaranteed second, because I've never been in a writer's room, so I don't know exactly what that is. Guaranteed second step. A second step is required whenever a writer is hired for a first draft screenplay. Sure. I mean, I think that means like if a writer provides a script and someone wants to like chew it up or whatever, that person is required by law now to be able to have a second go at it and like fix mistakes. That way, I think writers are not immediately cast aside if they pitch something that isn't that good. I think that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but let me know down in the comments if you agree with my read on that. Accelerated payment structure for flat deals. Screenwriters hired on a flat deal base. I don't know what a flat deal is. Like, money people. Where are you at? Money people. Let's break this down. Hired on a flat deal basis for 200% of minimum or less must be paid 50% of their fee on commencement. I'm gonna be honest, that's just a lot of money terms. I'm recording this in the morning too. It's not that early, but you know, if the writer is not delivered within 9 weeks of commencement, 25% of the fee is payable upon invoice. This is just like payment related stuff having to do with like screenwriter employment, which I'm sure is all very good and well, but I don't know how to explain it exactly, so I'm gonna plead the fifth there. Streaming features. When a feature-length project is made for streaming with a budget of $30 million or more, the minimum initial compensation for a story and telepay is $100,000. Wow. And a 26% increase in the residual base. Wow. Okay, that money stuff I do understand. So if you're on a really big budget project that's probably going to make a lot of money, they're saying you will make at least $100,000, which it actually even lists out. It's an 18% increase from the current rate. That's huge. That's a very big like jump in the minimum. Combined with the foreign residual improvements described below, this results in a 3-year residual of $216,000 for projects on the largest services, a 49% increase under the 2020 MBA. Wow, that's okay. So they're getting some money. they're getting some bread. We love some bread. All right. Improved terms in high-budget subscription video on demand. Wow, that's a lot of words. Increased foreign streaming residuals. Okay, this is just, I'm not going to break all this down, but I'm just going to read the headlines to you, and you can kind of keep reading if you're following along with me. Increased foreign streaming residuals. Viewership-based streaming bonus. So you get like a bonus if the project that you worked on basically goes viral. That seems like that's what that means. Increased compensation for series employment, weekly pay, and staff writer script fees. Okay. So weekly pay increases. This seems for like shows that are ongoing, seemingly. That's what it reads to me as. Writer, producer, weekly rates, yeah. Okay. And then development room premiums, okay. Just a lot more money stuff if you're curious. I'll keep saying it over and over again. I'm not too well versed in the finance aspects of what these writers and actors are getting paid, but if you're curious and you know a little bit more and you know what all this means, definitely go out and check out all this jargon, because I'm not really sure how to define it myself. Staffing and duration provisions for episodic series. So there are development rooms, aka green light rooms, and regular writer rooms for television, and that series will now have requirements regarding the minimum number of writers. Oh, okay, so that's big. That I know how to talk about. There's now seemingly there's an increase in the amount. So if there's 6 or fewer episodes of TV, you need a minimum of 3 writers in the room and a minimum of 3 producers if it's 6 episodes or less. If it's 7 to 12 episodes, there's a minimum of 5. But seemingly, there's more writers in the room, depending on how many episodes that there are, which I think is a good thing. It's just more jobs, more opportunities. Comedy variety series employment will get the aggregate minimum compensation in addition. So, I don't know. That might be for like late night shows. That's sort of what that sounds like. Something for writers for late night shows. Don't know for sure, but it looks good. All high-budget Appendix A programs will receive a residual of 1.2% of the license fee for use after the first 26 weeks. Okay, so you get residual for the first 26 weeks if you're on a seemingly a late-night talk show, which is good because they have to continuously just keep cranking stuff out. If you're like, the Late Night with Jimmy Fallon or something like that, the writers have to keep cranking stuff out. So after a certain point of time, the residuals will stop, because obviously like an episode that comes out like this week is not gonna have the same pull as episodes that come out like months from now. You know what I mean? So that's sort of like where they're going with it. Showrunner training program reached an agreement to renew $250,000 in annual funding for showrunner training program. Wow. Okay. I love that. So we might get some new showrunners, which is cool. Other changes and company proposals. Okay, so we'll read this and then we'll be done. We agreed to increase the number of episodes on new made-for-broadcast series that can get a single free promotional run from 2 to 3, but with the number of episodes capped at no more than 25% of the season. Okay, interesting. We agreed that the companies can exhibit a long-form program made for HBS VOD in theaters for no more than 8 days, at least 40 days after the program's release on the original streaming platform. Okay. So if something flops, they're gonna pull it. That seems to be sort of what it's. That looks like what it is. If something flops, they're gonna plug it so that they don't have to pay residuals, which I think is somewhat fair. If it's not making you any money, you don't want to have to pay residuals on the stuff that's not making you any money. So just pull it off the program. That way, there's no. Actually, I don't think I'm reading that correctly, but. Let me know if I'm reading. Let me know what that actually means. We agreed to a 3% increase in the thresholds for payment of 1.2 residuals for foreign fee, and so an increase in 3% for payment thresholds. Okay. We agreed to allow a company to credit a sole writer, director, or writer-producer of a project as produced by or presented by in publicity releases or advertising without a single writing credit. Oh, I don't know the implications of that, but I kind of like it. We agreed to allow a company to credit a sole writer and director or writer and producer of a project as produced by or presented by. So I don't know how that changes things, but that sounds like it could have some effects later on. And then the last thing, we agreed that interest isn't due when writers haven't provided the information necessary to process payment. So that feels fair too. There's no interest on anything if the writers haven't been provided the information. That feels fair. But that's basically it. Let me know what the highlights are for you. I think the highlights for me personally are, I think that the way that they handle the AI is pretty good. I think it can and should be used as a tool for the writers, but for it to be like a straight up replacement of them, I think that's where the problem was. So I'm thankful that they came to a conclusion there. And I like the idea of new showrunners. I just glossed over that really quick, but there's a lot of shows, and whether it's live broadcast or streamed stuff or stuff for streaming, I think that just new faces, more people in the room, I think is just overall just a better thing. I hope you found this information informative, and I will likely do another segment in the future covering everything that the strikes have led to and the effects that they provided. If you're getting anxious about all these talks of strikes, then fret not. This is a big win for all the writers in the industry and a reminder to support and promote them whenever you feel moved to. We're going to take another break, but when we come back, I will be joined by a guest. We'll be right back. If you are enjoying the show so far, please remember to check out the episode playlist on Spotify. Also, leave a rating and subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. Wouldn't that be a shame? Break time's over. Time for the final part of the show. Now it's time for Windfall. You've seen the draft, but typically we don't have time for super deep discussions during those types of segments. So for today, I'm bringing you the first installment of the Great Debate. In this segment, myself and a guest will have a passionate debate, and you, the audience, will decide who wins. Each debater will have 1 minute to open, followed by 10 minutes of debate, and we'll conclude with 1 minute of final statements. With that, help me in welcoming our first recurring guest, Payce Shepard, fan favorite, my beloved Payce. Are you ready to
Hi,
introduce yourself?
James. It's
Hello.
nice to be back.
Yes. I get to, and for the audience who's curious, I mean, no one asked, but we're recording on Zoom, so I get to see Pace's wonderful blue eyes.
Hold on, James. Hold on.
Okay. For the audio listeners, actually, which is everyone. Payce is chugging milk from a gallon right now. So, yeah, isn't this lovely? We get to, oh, and guess what? I didn't even tell the audience what we're debating yet. I just said that we're debating something. You might think, oh, this is a movie podcast. Oh, you're gonna debate movies? Well, probably at some point. But for today, we needed something that was low prep, right, Payce? We needed something that we could just whip up in a night. And what did we decide to debate tonight, Payce?
Well, it's the topic I'm most passionate about. Candy.
Candy. More specifically, Halloween candy.
Yeah, right. Candy. Yeah, it's the best Halloween candy.
So what's your combatant?
Today, I'd like to enter pretty much the only option, as it takes the cake, so to speak, or the candy, you might say, in both the Halloween sector and also the broader capitalistic consumer sector. We have, of course, the candy corn.
The candy corn?
Candy corn.
Well, it's tough to argue candy corn as a Halloween, because I was just thinking about it and I was like, candy corn, flavor wise it's hit or miss, but you have to respect the legacy that it brings to the table. I mean, it's been a player for decades,
This idea that it's hit or miss is a ridiculous statement, and the legacy that you have just described was such an understatement as to be insulting.
Well, Payce, I gave you 3 options in my chat. When I sent you like some options that I might be presenting to you.
As a matter of disrespect, I did not read any of them.
Good, because I'm not picking any of those 3.
Disqualified.
I have to pick something that can go toe to toe with the candy corn. And it's something that's equally as fun. And I've been getting a lot of, excuse my French for the people who are young listening to this podcast, because they exist. I won't tolerate that shit anymore. Or sorry, they won't tolerate my shit anymore, because in every draft that I do, apparently I'm too basic. I'm picking all the basic stuff, Payce. So tonight, I'm just throwing it all on the line. I'm picking Toblerone. Toblerone is my combatant, because everybody loves Toblerone, right? Everyone loves Toblerone. It's so fun to say. Everyone's saying it out loud. Austin from Missouri, you're listening, right? Toblerone, best chocolate that begins with T. I mean, it's the best one.
What?
I can't even think of any other chocolate that begins with T. That's how good Toblerone is. But yeah, I'm picking Toblerone. Payce is picking candy corn. Yes, I'm being serious. I'm actually picking Toblerone. Like, for all jokes aside, whenever I see it, I get excited. But okay, we're gonna start our opening statements. I'll give my statement on why Toblerone is the best Halloween candy. Okay, when you think Halloween candy, what comes to mind? Chocolate. Chocolate is the stereotypical Halloween treat. There's all kinds of candy bars. But what is the bougiest candy that comes to mind? Toblerone. It comes in all types of flavors. Chocolate, white chocolate, caramel, dark chocolate. There's so many flavors of Toblerone that exist with all it's a nougat. Nougat is equally as fun to say as Toblerone. Toblerone is one of those things where you break off a little piece. They come in little triangles. There's like a big, weird kind of baton-sized weight. It's like a weapon. Toblerone's a weapon. Now, why is Toblerone the best chocolate? Well, I thought about Kit Kats. Kit Kats are pretty darn good, but nothing hits the palate quite like a Toblerone, okay? It's so in your mouth. It gets all the flavors all over the place. You can put caramel in there. You can have nuts in there. I mean, candy corn doesn't have nuts in it. That's a huge knock in my opinion. But we'll get into that. Anyways, that's why Toblerone's the best, because it's chocolate and it's bougie chocolate. You get it, and I feel like you get it at all the rich people's houses. That's why Toblerone is the best Halloween treat.
Are you done?
Yeah. Need I say more?
When you think of Halloween, what do you think of? Chocolate. Actually, anything. You could think of chocolate. You could think of peanut butter. You could think of any other kind of candy. I don't care. What does it have in it? Corn. Corn dominates us all. It is the most replicable vegetable
What was that
that
word?
we
What
have.
was that word?
Replicable.
Reclipitable? Okay, yep.
Right.
That's a good one on Scrabble.
Replicable vegetable that we have in this country. It has been made over and over and over everywhere. The GMOs have created corn into being an omnipotent product in American consumerism. What is candy corn, James? What is candy corn? Candy corn is a bow down, a final act of submission towards the consumer of this product during the holiday in which we get the most fat out of any holiday. It's this one where we teach our young children, our little boys and girls, that they must gain weight and become true Americans. This is how candy corn. It's so funny. We've tried to hide the fact that corn isn't everything. We've tried to, oh, there's corn syrup in this. Oh, there's corn whatever in that. There's corn in my laundry. There's corn in all this. We don't say it, but this is an admission. There is corn in our candy. This is candy corn. And this is the ultimate symbol of dominance, where the big man has decided, you know what, we're just going to tell you what's in all your food. We're going to tell you what's so fucking easy to make that we're going to like destroy all the landscape in the like Midwest just to grow this stuff. This is candy corn. Is there a real kernel in corn in candy corn? No, fucking chance. There's nothing. Nothing is real. Do you think this Swiss fucking chocolate that you got, what is this again? I don't even know. Toblerone? You think that's gonna hold a candle to candy corn? You think that for a second that Americans are gonna get off the television, they're gonna go to a Swiss shop and buy some Swiss chocolate? No. They want what's easy and what's cheap. And that is what is corn.
Thank you, Payce, for your brief opening statement. I'm gonna come right for you. There's no corn in candy corn, and even if there was, are you arguing for the fact that it's not a good thing that there was, in theory, a vegetable in this candy? That's never a good thing. You can't argue corn. Okay, you know what? I'll give you corn nuts are great. Corn on the cob are great. But you know what else has nuts in it? Toblerone. If we're looking purely design, okay? I can appreciate the colors of a candy corn, but here's the thing. The candy corn, it's just a triangle. And you know what that means. Illuminati. That's what that means. Candy corn does not represent the good in the world. It represents the scheminess. If someone gives you candy corn, it's sitting on the bottom immediately of your pillowcase or your box, or like whatever. What did you used to go when you did trick or treating? Did you have a bucket with you? Whatever, it doesn't matter. The candy corn always falls to the bottom, and it's always chalky and a little bit. It almost tastes like a candle, which is not a good thing in my opinion. Although some candles do smell pretty good, but that it tastes like a candle. Toblerone doesn't taste like a candle. That's a strong argument from my point of view.
What the fuck are you talking about? Candy corn doesn't need to be corn. It symbolizes what controls everything that you consume. What? It's the Illuminati? It sure is. You can obsess over it. You can make theories about it. It is a supreme act of dominance. Just because you know what? I have sympathy. I have sympathy for your precious, precious heart. You just want to find what the cutest candy is, what the sweetest candy is. Oh, what's the sweetest and the one most wonderful candy?
You can't kill a vampire
Christopher
with a candy
Robin,
corn.
who Christopher Robin, what is the sweetest? It does not matter what is sweet, James. It matters what is powerful. And what is powerful is candy corn because it is a symbol of dominance over our entire food pyramid, which is interspersed with corn syrup, with high fructose corn syrup, with other kinds of corn. I may not be educated on this topic, but I know that we have corn in almost in a ton of things where corn shouldn't be, and it. Here's the thing: why? What do I have a knock against this fucking chocolate thing that I can't?
Do you
even
know what a
fucking
Toblerone
name?
is?
I don't. What do I have a knock against it? It's like having a knock against an ant. Why would I knock an ant? I have no care in the world. An ant outside in the snow when I'm inside by the fire of fucking corn, of candy corn.
But
That
an,
is
an,
going.
an ant wouldn't even touch a candy corn. And ants don't care. They're so like you want to call Toblerone an ant? Candy corn is beneath ants. Okay? It's quite literally in the soil. It's bad.
You're a liberal and a communist. But despite that, there is no battle that can be won with this kind of chocolate. If you'd like to go out and free yourself from the whims and the chains of society and live by yourself on a mountain in Maine and then create some sort of chocolate society,
you're describing
You
a
can
pretty good life.
you can try, but the reality is but brutal, and it takes a strong will to tell you the truth, and that is that as long as you live underneath the majesty that is Lady Liberty, you will be living under the dominion of corn.
Wait, what what was any of that? I was waiting for you to get somewhere with that, and I just feel like you've talked your way into me not knowing what a candy corn is. I feel
What
like
is a candy corn?
the best part of
What?
a candy corn is the tip, right? That's the best part of the candy corn. You bite you everyone knows you just go for the tip. The tip's the most important part, Payce.
What is the tip, James?
What is the tip?
tip-
I'll give you a tip.
What is the tip?
Toblerone is the tip, okay? Toblerone comes in a box. What does candy corn come in? I actually don't know. What does candy corn come in? What is it comes in like a little plastic bag, right?
You know what you
else?
find? You know what you find it in, James? The reason you can't tell me what candy corn comes in is because you don't actually have the choice. Candy corn is going to be available. It's going to be
because no
in
one
little-
wants it.
it's going to be in
unwanted.
food plates. If people are going to eat it, who gives a shit if anybody wants it? There's candy corn, and you are getting at least 1% increase in body mass because candy corn exists. It is at every fucking party, especially if it's the fall, and
It's
it
a
is-
decoration at best. How does it feel
You know what it
to
is?
have your champion
it's
be something
it's a-
that is designated to nothing more than a decoration on frosting? What is Toblerone?
what?
Toblerone is a 4-course meal, and it doesn't need to be any more than that. You could eat Toblerone and you could get all your vitamins.
At the end of the day, James, the candy corn is eaten. Just because it is majestic to look at does not mean that it is purely a decoration. You are grasping at straws as if a beautiful object can only be a beautiful object and not also a smart and intelligent candy?
In what
Why?
way is candy corn intelligent?
Just because you are mesmerized.
Candy corn is pointy. It's got 3 colors. And it's unwanted. Toblerone has
What?
so much personality. Toblerone is that guy that shows up at the party wearing a monocle unironically. That's kind of cool, okay? No one looks at a Toblerone and goes, I don't care. Everyone looks at a Toblerone and goes, oh, I probably can't afford it. Which is probably not that's okay because it's Halloween and everything's free on Halloween. You just go and you just knock on strangers' doors and get candy. And if they give you a Toblerone, you kind of scream in excitement. You go, oh my gosh, I got a Toblerone. I've said that every single time I get a Toblerone. I do a little jump, I click my heels, and I say, ooh, a Toblerone. No one says that about a candy corn. No one does. Okay, you can't convince me that anyone gets it. Because guess what? Guess what? One Toblerone is enough. You need a whole handful of candy corn in order for it to even do anything. And even though candy corn may add body mass on you, Toblerone actually decreases body mass because it indulges or it inflicts diarrhea, which in turn will probably save you about half a pound. With that, I think we transition over to our final statements. We've heard the arguments. Payce, what is your final statement about why candy corn is the best Halloween candy?
Well, I suppose what really is, in essence, what the best candy corn or the best candy is just sort of the candy that has exerted through its brashness and its pure dominance. It's exerted its influence upon us. The idea of a fun or exotic or an exciting candy coming in and applying to someone's niche is sure, it is fun and it is exciting. And I do not want to get in the way of an American's true and responsibility, even to have the liberty to decide that they want some dumb fucking stupid Swiss candy as to be their favorite, or to smile with glee at some 90-year-old grandma's weird decision to grab the candy at Target that was half off, but still kind of expensive because she was in a hurry. There is not any problem with that. I have no quarrel with a candy with nuts, or a candy with peanut butter, or a candy with chocolate, or a candy with vanilla. It's just that there are candies that just remind us where we are and who we are and what we were and what we are going to be. And candy corn is a candy that we will have to live with for the rest of time.
Damn. Okay, well, as a boy, I grew up and I went through different phases in life. As a wee infant, I was a fan of Snickers. I matured a little bit, became a fan of Twix. Grew up a little more, and I loved myself a Kit Kat, but at my current state of being, I thirst for a little more in life. I thirst for excitement. I thirst for adventure. And what else beside Toblerone gives you such a sense of adventure? When I hold my Toblerone in my hand, I look at it and I look at any adversity that comes my way and I think to myself, I can overcome. When there's a mountain in front of me, I charge it with full force with my chin right at a 90-degree angle facing it. I charge into that mountain. And I think to myself, because I'm holding a Toblerone, I can achieve whatever I want in my life. And I will walk into the sunlight and think to myself that I am good enough. And life is good. Life is Toblerone. Payce, I want to thank you so much for coming on to this segment of The Great Debate. Payce, where can the people find you? Are you on Instagram?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me. I have a Twitter page at red hot dogs or just
Red Hot
com.
Dogs.
You can go me at red hot dogs. I have a Reddit, I believe, and of course you can email me at flyingmangorun@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, Payce, I want to thank you once again for coming on. You're always a pleasure, and I'm sure the people will see you again. And you've heard the arguments, folks. Let us know in the comments who won this debate. What was your favorite part of the debate? Please let us know and vote in the poll that I will be including on Spotify. I don't know if YouTube will allow me to link a poll, but there will be a poll on Spotify. So if you're listening on YouTube, go over and check out the poll on Spotify. Please vote in that poll. And yeah, we will be back very soon. So don't go away. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cinema Spotlight. This episode had so many miscellaneous elements that was really just capped off by Payce, so be sure to send him some love on all the platforms that will be in the description down below. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and if you could, take a moment to subscribe to the show on whichever platform you're listening on. I would greatly appreciate it. Be sure to follow our official Instagram at @the_cinema_spotlight for updates on when new episodes get released. I'll go ahead and shut the spotlight off for now, but until next time, stay classy, friends.